Go down to financial discussion and possible action, interdepartmental billing. Same thing.
No, we were not given any direction at the last meeting, so this has been a hold off item from the agenda from the last meeting. So we're looking for input from the committee as to what you would like to see. And I know Supervisor Luck is one of them that brought this topic up, and she is here. She should be coming with Candace any
Yeah, I
second.
thought I saw her car outside, her Mustang, so I thought she'd be here. Okay, why don't we jump then to approval and finance fund transfer to the county fair, Fund 68.
Derek, are you handling that one? Oh, Carla's on.
Carla's online. Carla,
Can you hear-
are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
And
So this is the resolution that we submit every year for $15,000 startup funds for the fair that is then repaid within the first week after the event. So we're looking for you to approve that today to go on to county board.
okay, this is something we do every year to get things rolling. There comes Mr. Manning, and seconded by Mr. Williamson. Manning made the motion, Williamson seconds. All those in favor of approving the startup fund for the fair, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Carla, you got it.
Thank you, Mr.
Spend
Chairman.
Spend it wisely, and I know you will.
I will, I promise.
It's necessary. Okay, I hope you got me down for front gate on Friday night.
You are. I have you listed.
Thank you. And with my friend Tim. I knew Melissa was here because I saw the Mustang outside.
Yeah, we were. A lot of work. Thought we had more time.
Well, I apologize for that. We'll go back to the 2024 budget update then. And I'll call on Administrator Patch.
Well, so budgets were due last Thursday, so departments have gotten, do we have all of them now, Derek?
Yep.
Yep, we have all of them. We have done a very rough preliminary review. And so we'll be drilling down on that a little more, going through and tightening things up. And we'll be meeting with every department head starting tomorrow morning. So we will meet with about half tomorrow and then the rest on Friday, with the exception of Mike Bindle, who we will meet with on Tuesday of next week. That'll give us an opportunity to go through line by line, any questions we have, any concerns that we have, and identify any potential areas that we think may not be feasible in the budget for this year. And once that's done, then we will prepare to present to you all.
Just a question. Will department heads have an opportunity to address this committee?
At this point, the plan is for me to present the budget and for questions if absolutely necessary, but I think we should be able to weed through most of that and have a lot of that work drilling down on things done prior to.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll.
If we would like to sit and listen tomorrow, is that okay? Just to be here and just to listen?
They're one-on-one meetings. and
Oh,
if
they're
we
one-on-one?
did- Yeah, yep,
Okay.
they're one-on-one meetings.
And in the past, Administrator Pesh, we've done a kind of a super meeting.
Yeah.
And each department head was brought in to face the committee or present his or her budget and answer questions, so.
Yes, so we're just trying something a little different this year to make it a little more efficient, a little more time effective. And to give us time to really understand what the department heads are presenting so that when we do speak to you, we're all very well educated and on the same page. And if it doesn't work, we can always revisit a different way next year.
Thank you. Any other?
Also, one more point that I forgot to mention. We did get the preliminary increase for our health insurance, and it's much better news than we thought. We had anticipated a 13% increase, and we are actually looking at a 6%. So that's a significant, amount of money. 6%. I don't know the total of the money yet, but
Okay,
it's quite a bit.
quite a bit.
And just so I can clarify, that 13% that we put in for budgetary purposes initially was to cover not only the cost of the premium increase, but also the second year of the surcharge. So when Candace mentions the 6%, there'll be the surcharge on top of that. And then the other piece of news that just came out yesterday is the estimated net new construction, and the county came in at 0.92%. So that will factor into the budget, but I mean, we just got done talking about health insurance. The net new construction will not even be enough to cover health insurance.
How long are we locked into the state plan? Are we locked in more than? So, okay, I'm just curious.
I guess we should just not just shake our heads. For those that are watching, we should respond so people can understand. The county is not locked in, but the first year there was a higher surcharge. Second year goes down. If we were to stay in the program after this year, then the surcharge would no longer exist. It would just be the flat increase that we would see. And, my personal opinion, and, I think Candace shares this, is that we should always be looking at opportunities. So, but it was addressed at one of the committee meetings where there was consensus that for 2024, that we were not going to go out and seek other providers, that we were going to stay with the state for 2024. So that's what is in the plan right now.
Okay, thank you. We'll move down then to discussion and possible action on interdepartmental billing. And Administrator Pesh, John Holcomer just shared with us that we really haven't given, as a committee, any direction as to what we want staff to do. Is that correct?
On the issue of interdepartmental billing,
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess my impression was that we were going to have a discussion on what everyone wanted to see, and take that away from today and bring back additional information if it was necessary. That's why we made sure to have some of the other department heads here that could maybe speak to their practices and why some of these things are necessary.
And I don't know if I like interdepartmental billing as much as I like interdepartmental sharing and doing work for each other rather than creating a whole new system. And that has been done lately. I know Josh Elder and the highway department have done a lot out at the campus, for instance. Anyone else? Mr. Williamson, you'll comment.
Department?
Yeah.
I think we should listen to our department heads. Mr. Elder?
So, Mr. Chair, this item came from me, so if you'd like me to just talk about why I brought it forward.
You may, but Melissa Luck brought it
Okay,
forward,
yeah.
so
So
speak to it.
essentially, my question is, and I'll just give it a random example. This has no bearing on what I think of any department. I think they're all great. So let's just say that let's take trails, for example, and that, like the parks comes to Josh and says, can you help us? Can you mow the trails for us so we don't have to contract out to have it done or rent equipment or whatever? And if he would come back and say, no, I can't do that unless I were to hire staff, then to me, that makes total sense that then, that if he has to hire additional staff, that's an additional expense for him, then he should be billing them for the work. But if he were to say, yeah, I think we can make that work, I've got staff that could handle that, then to me, it's that he's got staff that have time to add some work, and we would just be creating an efficiency where the work can get done without billing that department when he has staff that has time to do it. So that's, to me, that's the line where, I mean, if they're having to create a new position, if they're having to, buy special equipment, then obviously, yeah, if it's work done for trails, then they should bill for those trails to cover the cost. Am I making myself clear?
Yes, but also hidden in that is the proper allocation of expense. And for instance, if it costs X number of dollars to maintain trails and highway department is simply absorbing that amount, then we don't have a handle on how much it costs to maintain trails.
Wouldn't they be keeping track of what their employees, what jobs?
Well, I don't know. I'll let Josh speak to
Yeah.
that. But
I mean, we don't need to talk about highway. I don't mean to pick on.
No.
It was an easy example that I could think of off the top of my head.
And that's fine. So what ends up happening is when that particular situation does happen, Josh, do you have time? You can get some employees over here. Can we take care of this emergency issue? It's not a matter of, yeah, I have employees that are sitting around not doing anything. It's like, okay, we'll help accommodate to that. So we're going to make the time for those employees. But when that happens, we have to allocate or account for their time to do that and account for the equipment time, because that all has to be billed out and shows in all of our accounting. So it's a very simple process of just basically setting up a special project number. We keep track of their hours, the equipment hours. We send that said bill over to that department we did the work for. Then they can charge right out of there or take it from whatever account they've identified the funds are going to come out of, and then they turn around and pay us back. Because if we end up absorbing those costs and say, oh yeah, we got the time, we'll just go do it, don't worry about it. Well, now we've just spent that money on the employees and we're not seeing that in return. And then we're cutting ourselves short from doing road projects and other maintenance items we could be doing. Because the general idea is that, oh, it's all one big pot of money. Well, it's really, in a way it is, but in a way it's not, because each department is kind of like it's, in a sense, its own business. You only have so much money to work with for the year, and you try to recoup your costs. If you make that time to do work for another department, you have to recoup those costs so you maintain what you budgeted for to do for that year. Does that make sense?
It does. Just one clarification. So are your employees, I know that the funding for the highway, it comes from many different places, but what is paid for out of tax levy at the highway shop?
Tax levy in the years past, we received 1.663,500, and out of that, so we dedicate, well, this year, about $700,000 in equipment purchases, and then we put so much into administration that covers the cost of the employees that aren't out of reimbursement accounts, and then small, like local bridge, and then bridge work, and then the rest goes into regular county highway maintenance, mowing and so on and so forth. So out of that 1.663,500, in reality, only about 400,000 of that is actually going into
Employees?
no, just the maintenance on the county.
Okay.
Mr.
Judge.
Manning,
Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
I guess the one thing I would add is that, by the way, I think I'd be in favor of interdepartment billing. And the reason is that if a department can help another, then that is money that's staying within the overall county budget. It's not money going out to a contractor, which would be a net addition to our total expenses for the year. Whereas taking one out of one pocket, putting the other, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, nobody's making money off the deal. I mean, you're just accounting for the hours and the time of employees and equipment is all you're doing.
Mr. Manning.
We had a long discussion about this at the fair and on parks.
and Josh knows how I feel about this, is that I don't think it's fair for, let's say, highway department to enrich, in this case, parks. He's taken out of his budget and the parks are saving their budget. That's why I'm very much in favor for us to bring some kind of action where Josh don't make a bunch of money, highway department off their county, and then we don't save another department, save them a bunch. There's got to be somewhere there where he's not enriching himself and another one saving. That's why I am in favor for some type of inter county billing.
And I'd like to clarify that we generally aren't making money on the deal. The rates that we charge is strictly for the hourly rate set for those employees. And then the equipment, which is a state hourly rate that is assigned to those pieces of equipment by the state. So we're not, patting the books and saying, okay, we can do this job for $2,500, but we'll charge them $5 and make money on the deal. But we can't do that. We don't do that.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, anyone else, Melissa?
I guess in my mind, the reason I wanted to have this conversation was more about, is there ways, can we identify efficiencies and save ourselves money overall in looking at, if one department has room for employees to do something that another department doesn't have,
Well, or in equipment, for
Or
instance,
equipment,
does the
yeah.
county need to own, I don't know how many mowers we own.
Right.
I'm talking
like at
about
the
lawn mowers.
fairgrounds and
Do we need 8 or 9 of them, or
exactly.
should we,
That's
should
what I
we
was
have
trying to get to.
3 that we share?
That's
those
what I
are-
would, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering if we could have a deeper conversation about that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I would agree with that, and that is part of what we're going to be looking at in our full organizational structure. Not only in, how our committees are looking for this board, but how our departments are looking. Where can we create efficiencies? Where can we identify ways that we can collaborate more? The example of equipment is one that I just used at the fair meeting. We have a snowplow that is utilized in one place, but not utilized anywhere else. Why? We have the truck, we have the snowplow, it's county equipment. Why can't that be utilized at several different facilities? Why are we contracting out? So, just for an example, I was able to track down the mowing contract for the parks for the summer. And that was $9,000 to have someone mow the parks for the summer. And that's just one example. So, I'm still trying to wade through and figure out where we're spending those dollars, but I do think we can be more efficient and more effective. And so those are things we are going to definitely be exploring.
So we're working on it. And it's high time. Of another example, and I know we picked on Josh, but I know that Randy from our newly formed maintenance department has been spending a lot of time at campus. At least he did. I'm not sure if that's continuing. So these are all things that need to be considered. So are we through with this discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
just one more thing. I wondered if Derek or the administrator could comment on whether it will be easy accounting wise to track and not it turn into a burden.
I can answer that. Yeah, I mean, I think as long as we have a centralized source and we know where that's not hard to do, no. I do just want to remember, we still want to make sure we're arriving at a cost, an actual cost to run a department as well, because that's important for me to know as well. I totally agree that we can centralize things, and yeah, we don't need 12 mowers if we need one. I totally get that. So we can make it happen. There's just going to need to be very clear direction from you guys as a governing board as to how you would want that process to look, or how we're able to centralize that, so then we know how to take care of it on our end, because it would probably be different than what we're doing right now, so, but like Candace said, this is something that she and I have talked about a few times too. So we can make it happen as long as we have clear direction and we all are on the same page, then we can make it work.
Tom Rislow, do you have a comment? We're already doing it to an extent. I mean, we had some riprap needed and then some repairs done by the highway department a couple of years ago, and they took care of that and they billed us for it. We periodically use transportation from HHS through their ADRC department, and they bill us for that when they transport a resident for us. So we've been doing that. There's also that bill that we get, someone does a figuring of the courthouse overall expenses and how it gets filtered out to all the departments. That's done as well. Yeah, I think we already do a lot of it. So
Yeah, I mean, we see bills from like HHS to bill the sheriff for mental health services. So, I mean, I think we're doing some of that, but I think the point Candace made is a very good point. It's just what resources do we have and how can we most effectively use those? And if that's, a different way that we're doing it now, I think that kind of hits on what Melissa's saying too, so.
so you got enough to run with?
We have our marching orders, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Candace and Melissa, we did approve the fund transfer to the Richland County Fair. That was done. So now we're down to number 9, discussion and possible action, approval of a public health specialist position. And I see that Trish is here, ready to speak. All right.
So what I'm looking to do is adding a position to our public health unit. We have our public health officer and 2 nurses are currently what's in our organizational structure in that unit. We have had 2 open nurse positions since February. Luckily, we just hired a nurse that will start at the end of August, but otherwise it's just been our public health officer. We reached out to other counties to say, what are you doing? Because they're in the same position we are with having a hard time hiring nurses. And they have created what's called a public health specialist. So they can do animal bites, they can deal with environmental health, they can do some of the communicable disease investigations, they can maintain like our community health assessment and our community health improvement plan. So we're asking to create this position. At any given time, we would only have 3 employees in the unit. So we're not wanting to give up a position, but we're wanting to say at any point in time, we'll have 3 employees, always the public health officer, which is required by the state, and then a combination of a nurse, public health specialist, 2 public health specialists, or 2 nurses, pending, I guess, what things are going on in the community and pending what we are able to hire.
Could I ask, is it a question of simply there aren't any nurses around that want to do this job, or we're not paying enough, or?
Pay is one of the greatest reasons. We've had quite a few people, I would say probably 6 people reach out and have said, with the wages being what it is, no. And the person who did take the job, she's taking a significant pay cut, but has said she doesn't want to have to travel anymore because she's she does hospice care, and so she does a lot of traveling, and she's very passionate about public health. And so that's why she's agreed to take the pay cut, but she will be picking up a shift at a local hospital to make ends meet, is what she has shared with us.
And we know that the public health nurse, that can be quite a job.
Yes.
If, for instance, another pandemic visits us.
Correct.
Okay. And you have a recommendation for a resolution?
I do. So we're asking that we create this position, that it would be at grade I, and then, which is a grade lower than the nurse. So there would be a cost savings to the unit if we hire a public health specialist instead of a nurse.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. And the resolution has been prepared. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Melissa Luck. Do I have a second? Williamson seconds.
I have a question.
Further discussion? Yes.
I would just want to know if the administrator approves of this.
I do.
Okay.
I have a question as well. I think in there, Tricia, it states the nurse is at grade K,
Yes.
and this will be at I. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah. I don't see that stated in the resolution. But also, I was just wondering if we could show the committee's vote, that right now that's blank on the resolution.
Yeah, and that's normally how they go to the board. Once we pass it, it shows the ayes and the noes. This is how it's supposed to be, anyway. I think it is. mostly.
It'll be updated. So right now, this said this is being offered to you by the Health and Human Services Board. And then on the bottom, I will note that it went through Finance and
Oh.
Personnel because this goes through two committees. And grade I is mentioned on the last whereas in the resolution, whereas Carlson Detman recommends a public health specialist position.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't understand your question. It makes sense now that I heard an explanation. So I know you're not, you're okay. All right, you've heard the resolution and the explanation, and we have a motion before us. All those in favor of this resolution being forwarded signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we got it. Discussion and possible action, approval of Sheriff's Department jail dispatch staff matching road patrol benefit accrual with a switch to a 12-hour shift. Sheriff Porter.
So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review the document we provided for this, but what we have is an agreement basically that mirrors almost identically what you signed with the union, what we just passed for the union. The differences being we took out the language for collective bargaining agreement and replaced that with employee handbook.
Does this present any peculiar problems because it's a little bit different job?
As far as
Well, doing a 12, up at dispatch and jail.
the only issues that I would foresee that it could cause is if we had a large amount of people on sick leave, we're going to be working people pretty long shifts. This is coming again at the employee's request. They were looking to do this. It does increase coverage for us when we are fully, when we do have a full schedule. We will have more staff on at a time, which will be nice. So if we do have somebody who drops off that's sick, we won't necessarily have to overtime it to cover it. So that is one bonus with this.
Getting a head nod from the administrator, so. Okay, you've heard the explanation and what we want to do. Does anyone have a yen to make a motion? Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. Turk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff Porter. Discussion and possible action, approval of revised computer policy. I'm not sure, Barb will be handling this, I would assume.
So I have a crosswalk out there with the new, as well as the new policy, but when I presented this to my committee, they requested a crosswalk between the two documents. So I have done so, and I'm attempting to share it here. Except for I need to go back to the other one, so it stops putting that up on the projector here. So what we've done is the last update of the county computer policy was done in 2018. And since that time, technology has changed significantly. With that, it was time to revise the county computer policy. I actually had it done in 2020. And we said, when Clinton gets here, we're going to do this. Clinton arrived, and literally 3 days later, you know what else arrived. And so it just didn't happen. So now Candace got here, and I didn't give another pandemic a chance. I said, we're going to do this right now. So we have the new one. There isn't really a simple crosswalk. The document that we had before was so archaic that there wasn't a simple transition. It needed to be redone. But the significant differences are covered in this. The policy has been expanded to include computers, laptops, iPads, tablets, printers, smartphones, and any computer devices that connect to the network or computers. The passwords requirements were expanded. We now require complex passwords that wasn't spelled out before. Excuse me. Workstations are now required to be shut down at night. That was not clarified or specified before. The policy allows for technology assessments and testings with a plan for mitigation of our users. We have found that we are severely lacking in some of our savviness of our users. So now we will be assessing where we have needs for growth and address those. And they also have eliminated the use of USB drives, except for specific exceptions where they're the sheriff's video cameras. We have to use USB drives for that. If there's a very specific need, we can make an exception, but not unless.
Why is that, Barb? What, are they particularly vulnerable to?
They're very vulnerable, and if you look at the next section, we have had more than one incidence of intellectual property theft in the county, and USB drive is specifically used for that. So to prevent that intellectual theft of county property, it's better policy to prevent use of them.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, also the Government Data Practices Act, we have access to a ton of data that is protected data. And if that data should leave the county and be used, then it would be on us because we didn't have the proper protocols in place to protect that data.
Okay.
We defined remote workers and we defined the responsibilities of those remote workers. Now, since COVID, we've definitely expanded the remote workforce, so we needed to put that into place. We have a definition now for enforcement and violations of policy. Before, there wasn't a lot of teeth with our policy. We just said, don't do it. Now there is action for that. There's also software installation policy that really wasn't defined and is definitely outlined in this. So with those being the biggest changes, the policy itself, of course, is included in the packet that you have. I'm not sure if anyone has any specific questions about it. I'm happy to answer those.
Will this require training
We'll do a review.
of the board, for instance?
I'll probably do a review with everyone. I will send it out. Once we are doing our change to Office 365, it'll be very nice because have a platform to do those on. Until then, the department heads will be given the crosswalk and employees will be given the new policy and asked to review it. And of course, an opportunity to ask questions.
Mr. Carroll?
I'm assuming these county board iPads are remote work.
Yes.
And so there's some kind of a form we need to sign and that'll all be happening.
Yep, you'll get the new policy mailed to you or handed to you probably at a county board meeting
All right.
after this is approved to sign again.
Do you foresee two-step authentication happening?
Yes, with the new Office 365, we'll have two-step. I'm sorry.
Mr. Williamson?
Do you require new employees to sign? Is that part of the deal?
Yes, new
Okay.
employees are put through an orientation. We review the policy and expectations.
Will all employees be signing this new?
But all employees will be signing the updated policy.
And board
You-
members?
Yes, go ahead.
And
Sorry.
board members?
And board members will be expected to as well.
Do you want a resolution or a motion to pass this
That
forward?
is up to the board and the committee, of course. If they think that it should go to county board, that's certainly what we would do.
Do you think it should go to county board?
Well, Mr. Chair, this is a formal policy, so I do believe it should be done in a resolution.
Okay,
So
so I need a motion to direct. Yes, Mr. Manning.
Nothing for the policy.
So I need a motion to direct Administrator Pesh to prepare a resolution adopting this formal policy.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Carroll? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I'll just turn in my laptop, I think, Barb. Okay. Where were we? Discussion and possible action, approval of resolution recognizing the service of a county board supervisor. And I'm going to call on Vice Chair Turk to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a time several years ago when we had turnover in the county board. Those who had served were recognized with a resolution acknowledging their service and contribution to the county. We kind of got away from it in the last couple years. I'm not sure exactly why that happened, but we recently had the change with Supervisor Murphy Lopez resigning. And so I suggested that we draft a resolution acknowledging his years of service to the county, both as a supervisor and as vice chair for a period of time, acknowledging the significant commitment of time and effort that he made towards the position, as I would suggest that we do for any board member who leaves service, because it is a commitment that someone makes to public service to serve in the office.
Thank you. I'm a little lukewarm on this one, not because it's Sean, but because you serve. People say thank you as you walk out the door, and that's really all you need. Anyone else? I'd like you to weigh in on this. I mean, this is one of those, well, it doesn't cost us anything, so, let's just move it along, but,
I
if,
don't think it's a bad thing.
if everybody gets one, what is the value? I mean, it's like a participation ribbon, isn't it?
Not that
Somebody,
there's anything wrong with that.
well, maybe not. You'll get what's due you. You're fine with not doing anything. Well, we have a resolution prepared before us, so. Mr. Carroll, you look pensive.
As usual. I guess I could go either way, but I would recommend we go ahead and do this one and then have a conversation about if we really want to keep doing it. But this is already on the table. It's easy enough to do. And I personally think Sean really did a lot of above and beyond effort when he was on the board.
Absolutely.
That was what I was going to say as well.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second by Carol. All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm not gonna be the one to vote against it, I'll tell you that. Okay, it'll be sent along for board action.
Everybody, Sean put in a lot of time and effort here, but it's gonna be kind of awkward letting him get it. Then right after that, if we decide to quit doing it again,
Yeah.
we was doing it, then we quit, then we do it, and we quit again.
We should probably continue this as an agenda item for discussion. Thank you. Discussion and possible action procedure for employee reclassifications. And which one of you is gonna handle this? Okay. Administrator Pesh.
Okay, so as we all know, we have a lot of discrepancy in our pay system. And part of, I think, what has been contributing to that is the way that we are handling reclassifications. Often reclassifications were being sent in without the knowledge or approval of anyone in administration. And so much so that at times bills weren't even paid for 6 months. And so there has been now a lack of consistency. There is a lack of internal equity. And the whole pay scale is, as we know, in trouble and doesn't make a lot of sense. I was able to locate this policy on personnel classifications, compensation, and staff authorization. And it's pretty plainly spelled out here that department heads are to go through the administrator for approval. And so my suggestion would be that we create some sort of we amend this or we do something along the lines of requiring a department head to speak with the county administrator to discuss a reclassification. And then from there, it comes to finance and personnel and then to the board for approval. Because what has been happening as well is in this policy, it says that the board, finance and personnel and the board will approve these, and that hasn't been happening either. And I think that's part of the reason why some of these have gotten a little bit out of control. So, I just want affirmation that you support me holding people accountable to the policy, that you support in my role as administrator, me working with department heads to review all reclassification requests to ensure that they're legitimate reclassification requests, that the job duties are significant, that it warrants spending those dollars to have that reclassification done. Earlier this year, John said he had pulled the data and it was over $7,500 had been spent already this year on reclassifications. And that's money that we could be using to give raises. So I am just requesting that you clarify your expectation for me as the administrator so that I understand what your intent is for the reclassification process. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
When you say 7,500 have been spent, is that spent to Carlson Detman that you're referring to? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hokumer.
If I could, and I was trying to find the email on it, but I've come to the conclusion that I didn't receive it in an email. I think it was in a hard copy. That 7,500 may have been from back to January of 2022 to, like a month and a half ago or so. So we can check on that and get you the numbers. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that this is something I noticed right away when I got here back in April, that there were just a lot of reclassifications happening. And as Candace said, we didn't know in the administrator's office, we didn't know until we got the invoice. And several times it was months after Carlson Detman had done the work. So, that creates a number of problems. But the other thing I noticed is that in places where I worked before, when we did reclassifications, unless it was an absolute emergency, we did them at budget time. We did them all at one time of the year, not sporadically through the year. So that's another thing that I would recommend that we take a look at in the policy, that they're done once a year at budget time.
That's what the policy already said.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, Mr. Carroll.
So if I understand, you feel like the policy as written is okay, and you're looking for us to confirm that the chain of command goes through you.
Correct.
Okay, I'm down with that.
Are you making that an affirmation?
Yes.
Agree.
Okay, and we'll take that then as a motion with an affirmation, seconded by Manning. So what we're voting here is to have our administrator shore up this process.
One question, I think at one time, Administrator Pesch, were we talking about possibly putting all classifications, reclassifications on hold until if we happen to get a new study done, or you think it'll be too long?
I do think that there is the potential for it to be too long until we look at the budget and get those numbers finalized. It would be hard for me to speak to whether or not it's feasible. At the direction of this board, I have obtained several quotes for at least the study portion. But again, until I get some benchmark data, I don't know what that number would be to implement a new comp and class study. I am fearful that it may be a multi-year implementation simply because of the disparity that we're going to find.
I will make a comment, though, that the reclassification is often used because we don't have a clear cut and defined path for employees to progress in their jobs. And that was always my problem with the Carlson-Detman plan. I always told my predecessor, Janetta, it's only half a plan. They didn't put in, you know, the progression, the logical, yeah, they have steps, but how do you reach that? And I'm starting out as employee in whatever step classification I'm in. And how many years in what am I, 3 years, 4 years, 7 years? Then I can expect to go to the next progression. So I think that is important. And
Mr. Chair.
yes,
I would agree. I think that when you're creating a compensation strategy, you need to have a very clear implementation strategy, and you have to have a very clear outline of how that strategy will be applied, and it should be consistent over all departments. And so those are things that I will definitely be looking at. In addition, I firmly believe in a maintenance plan, which means that you review a portion of jobs every single year to ensure that you don't get so far below market that we're in the position that we are now, where it's going to take a substantial amount of money to correct our pay scale. When you do this approach, it's very, very small adjustments on an annual basis, and it's much more palatable, and you don't get your workforce so far below. In addition, I'm a big fan of creating a career ladder. If you know that there's an entry-level position that could lead into a next level position and one after that, you identify those progression abilities and you market that to a new employee, saying you may start out here, but after a period of time, you could work your way up to here and then to there. And I don't see a lot of those necessarily identified within the structure that we have now. So those are all areas that I'm hoping that we can work on.
absolutely. So we did have a motion in a second. So all those wanting Administrator Pesh to look at these things signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Okay, future agenda items. We already have one. We're going to talk about the recognition of board members, I guess. Maybe we would also include employees in that. I don't know if we have I think we have a defined, but we should look at it again. So I think that should be on the agenda. Anything else, Mr. Carroll?
I'm not sure if it comes to this committee, but I'm still concerned that I have not heard anything about current status of the tower project. And beyond just a verbal thing during a meeting, I mean, a written report giving an update on cost to date, projected cost, projected timeline, things that have surprised them, things that are going well, just a report. And I have not seen one. If it doesn't come to this committee, it needs to go to somebody on the board.
So, Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
so
Ms.
we
Melissa
do
Luck.
updates every month at public safety meeting.
Are there written reports?
They're not. We discuss and
That's what I'm saying. I think there needs to be written reports so anyone can reference them and understand where things stand.
Okay,
Got that?
I wrote the last one. I can do another one.
Well, this harkens back to what I said before. We're used to having this big, and bring in everyone, and we had Clint's famous, what did we call those, time charts?
Spreadsheet.
That I couldn't read because they were so damn small. I couldn't, but, Carol read them. I know he did. Yep, twice. Mr. Manning?
Yes, I would like to have on the agenda too, and maybe Clay can help me with this. It doesn't seem as though we have a policy as far as our campgrounds, as far as squatters. I know we're now having a problem again at Viola.
Okay.
I don't, so I just would like to make some kind of policy if we can, as far as the county-wide.
Okay. All right. I don't know if that is finance and, I think probably should come through parks. Already, right?
Yeah,
So-
it's been discussed before, the last time they had that problem there, and
So, what's the enforcement, Sheriff
I think
Porter?
that's what the issue was with the enforcement. Clay could probably.
Mr. Chair,
Well,
this is Carla. Can I answer that question that Mr.
Yes,
Manning
you-
asked?
Yes, go ahead, Carla.
So Kathy Cooper and I are currently working on putting together a countywide ordinance for camping that would include all of our parks and our fairgrounds, along with some rules and regulations that we will be reaching out to Sheriff Porter for him to review, to be part of that as well before we take it to our Fair and Parks Committee and before we move it on to Finance and Personnel or County Board, whichever direction it needs to go.
Okay, so
This
we'll
is District
wait
Attorney
for
Jennifer
that.
Harper. Mr. Chairman, can I speak
Yes,
for a moment?
Jennifer. District
Yeah, and
Attorney
I would
Harper.
have, so it wouldn't be enforced through my office. It would be enforced through Corporation Counsel. And I want to make sure, very sure that they're involved with that. They should always be involved in ordinances. But I know that there are other counties and other municipalities where, yes, they'll have that ordinance. But then when it comes to enforcement, the question is, do you remove the squatters? Right? So it's fine and good that you can give someone a ticket, but if they're still squatting, for instance, this was recently a problem with lacrosse, what are they going to do? Have all our city cops go in, take the people, take their junk, and then where do they put them? So this has been a real enforcement practical problem beyond let's have some rules and let's have a forfeiture or a fine or a ticket or something like that we do with other forfeitures. It also has a very difficult practical implications. So we should definitely have Corporation Counsel on board to consider that aspect of it, because certainly there's got to be some kind of liability aspect for the county that goes along with that.
And Corporate Counsel Wendell is aware of it and has been working with us on the situation.
Good. I'll reach out to him too, and we can talk a little bit about the enforcement problems in other jurisdictions.
Okay. I'm sure other counties have the same problem. In cities. Okay. Future agenda items, all right, we talked about that. Takes us down to number 15, Mr. Manning. Motion to adjourn by Manning, second by Williamson. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Congratulations. This is less than an hour. Very, very good.